Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and luchadors of all ages, to the latest edition of Cageside Speaks. I am 14 Fitzpatrick, and I will be your host for today, filling in for KM Tierney, who is currently away, dealing with the birth of his wonderful baby.
El hijo de Kevin Tierney.
Yep, congratulations.
Or La hija de Kevin Tierney. I don't know what the gender of the baby is.
Yep, I don't know either. So, anyway, I am filling in for him for this edition of Cageside Speaks, in which we will talking about Lucha Underground and the season premiere and the second episode that has aired so far. Joining me on this panel are two returning guests and a brand new debut for Cageside Speaks. First, Zenrification, making his second appearance.
What's going on, guys?
Making his, I believe, third appearance on the show. Is it fourth?
I have no idea.
But anyway, well, one of those spots was filled by your alter ego, Del Guerrero.
Da 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 da.
Anyway, it's Von Krager making his...
Von Krager,
Krieger.
damn you. It's German pronunciation.
Yep. I'm German, so I should probably know that. And anyway...
You'll bring shame on the family.
Yes, I have put many, many shames. Anyway, in our Cageside Speaks debut is the man who's going to be talking about Lucha Underground with Zen and Vaughn. He is a Buckeye brawler who is capable of most wonderful rants and has been sharpening his daggers for this very podcast. He is the one and only Rex Cyronovic. Say hi, Rex.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Oh, sure, you get the Russian patronym, but you screw up on my name.
No, he didn't. I just wasn't going to call him out on it.
We are on to a great start so far. So anyway, let's start off with our first question. Did the Lucha Underground first two episodes solve any of the criticisms, if you have any, that you have had about the show when you watched it during Season 1? We'll start with, let's go with Rex.
All right. Not really. I mean, it did a little bit better for me in that we saw Pentagon Jr. in a primo spot, but it felt like an unearned spot right there, that storyline that they're trying to pull with Prince Puma. And once again, to what I think the standards of those performers are, especially when you're dragging people down with the Disciples of Death. The worst. They're the worst.
Yes, they are the worst.
The thing with the Disciples of Death is that you shouldn't be thinking of them as professional wrestlers. What you should be thinking of is like in a video game sense. They're not even mini bosses. They are the random minion mob trash that you have to go through about 20 or 30 times before you get to the midpoint of the dungeon. They only won the trios titles because of Ivelisse being injured. They only won in a 2-on-3 type situation. If the show was Power Rangers, the Disciples of Death would be the putties.
Oh,
you're insulting the putties there, Vaughn.
I would have to agree there. I think I would rather have the putties than the Disciples of Death.
I'd agree with you there, Rex.
Yeah, there's nothing good about the DOD.
And I kind of think that that's on purpose. I think that in order to have yourself a proper evil overlord like Mil Muertes, he needs disposable minions.
You can have disposable minions that can at least, convince you to have a halfway decent match. The DOD are just, they make me want to turn off my TV every time they pop on.
I'd rather take the Ascension over the DOD.
I am well known for hating the Ascension, and I would agree with that.
Okay,
those three guys were not good at what they do, and it showed a lot last year, which is why it was so rough having to put the titles on them.
On the bright side, I watched Triple Mania. I suffered through that whole audio atrocity. And I can say, considering that AAA is backing Lucha Underground, at least he didn't have the fucking Villanos out there as Disciples of Death.
Oh man, that's
As
always
bad
looking on
as
the bright
they
side.
are, as I think,
Looking on the bright side.
I think as bad as they are, I think we're just a bit spoiled because everything else with Lucha Underground is so awesome. Their Disciples of Death are just
Think about how
neutrally.
bad they have to be in order to still be bad after all the editing Lucha Underground does.
Yeah, true.
Like, that's really bad. It makes
Yes.
sense in like they're slow plotting death figures, but they're still not good at what it is they're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You can not be good at wrestling, but if you're good at the role you're playing in wrestling, it works. It doesn't with the DoD.
I would agree with you there because it was really, really painful for me to watch the 9-minute full clip that they had up on YouTube on the Lucha Underground thing, where they are working with such a slow-paced match, and you can see that literally, if Puma and Pentagon Jr. were wrestling sacks of flour, it would be a much more entertaining match. Because that's what they literally had to do.
Ric Flair versus his own clothes in WCW was way better.
Yes.
I would
Ric
agree with you there.
Flair's proverbial broomstick.
Yep. So, did you like the direction of the first 2 episodes?
I thought it was rather interesting that considering we're getting a slightly different management style with Mil and Katrina in charge and Dario Cueto off in the desert somewhere feeding random schmucks to his cage monster.
The temple's gotten a little bit more chaotic all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one making sure they profit off of what's happening. Things are just now happening.
Yeah.
Oh man, Dario's my homeboy though. As long I'm willing to give them some leeway on this one, but the sooner they can get Dario back in there, the better for me.
Oh,
I
God.
would agree with you there.
Katrina
And the
doesn't
the
fit
less
to that
Johnny Mundo
authority
we
figure
can
type.
get.
Mhm. I mean, like, Dario is the main reason why I watch Lucha Underground. A lot of the show, to me, is interesting, but not interesting enough to make a full watching experience. But Dario carries every segment that he's in. Like, the one time when he's talking to the crew and saying to them, "Do you know what a layup is?" In this condescending tone of, "You idiots, I gave them to you on a silver platter, the Trios Championship,
That
and
was great.
I have to explain to you how to beat 3 people up, including one of whom who is female, and take their
And
shiny thing."
with a leg not working. Yeah.
Yes, with a leg not working. And then he shows them the example of, if you fail me again, you get to be fed to my evil brother. And they failed. Horribly.
And they fed one of them to his evil brother.
I'm sure he was quite pleased about that. After all, the jobber diet is incredibly good for you, I've heard.
It works for Ryback.
Not necessarily at this point. He's just another big guy that they sent out there to, do big guy, big strong guy spots that Vince likes so much.
Like,
And my God, he's got muscles on his muscles. Look at them. Cue that Vince McMahon World Bodybuilding Federation splice gif.
you could easily replace Ryback with either Cage or Big Mike from ROH, and no one would even remember Ryback after that.
He would join such luminaries as, what was it, Heinrich and Brockus. Heinrich and Brockus.
And Snitsky.
Yep. And it wasn't his fault this time that Ryback ended up on the list.
Though, truth be told, Snitsky and Heidenreich were just so campy and bad that I had to love them.
That's how I feel about Ryback, actually. I don't know. He just cracks me up for some reason. His promos always entertain me. I don't know why. They're goofy as fuck, but they just get to me.
I agree with that. That's the only part of him that I really like about Ryback is the promos. Although he actually has a cousin down in the CMLL called Thunder, who's an Australian wrestler.
Don't insult Ryback by comparing him to Thunder. Ryback is bad, but Thunder makes the DOD look good.
I might have to agree with you there. I've seen like 2 of his matches, and they're like horrible, horrible matches.
As I think, oh god, I can't. I was just browsing the thread earlier, and someone compared him, said he was the Braun Strowman of CMLL, and that's pretty much the case, except with a nicer body.
I don't know. I seem to be one of the few people who generally doesn't mind Strawman as much as other people do. I know that he's very basic and limited in the ring. It's just I don't have any reason to really be angry with him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a wrestler. He's more of a prop at this point.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he can at least rap good, from what I've heard from the Instagram video that apparently was dug up 2,000 leagues under the sea by somebody.
No, enough ridiculous. Let's get back to Lucha Underground.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
so let's see here. The main problem I had with Lucha Underground as I watched the episodes is there seemed to be a weird issue with the sound on the broadcast. Like, the microphones were tuned down too low, so I could really not hear anything that was being said, although, to be fair, that's probably countermeasures to prevent Matt Stryker from doing something stupid.
Well, as bad as Lucha Underground audio issues are, at least they're not AAA.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed any audio issues, but my biggest carryover complaint from last season is they edit way too much during the matches. There's no need to cut to 5 different camera angles during 10 seconds. It's not doing anyone any favors. Usually during a move, they cut to a really weird place. You miss the full move, see this thing that has nothing to do with what's happening in the ring, go back to the ring, and you missed what happened all of a sudden. Like,
so I'm not going to really fault them for that. WWE has been horrible with that recently. So
I'm sorry, but like 5 camera cuts in 10 seconds is too much.
Agreed.
Well, Lucha Underground doesn't make me nauseous with the zoom cam when they're throwing out punches like WWE does, though. So at least there's that.
So
I don't know. I think my biggest problem is they get the little things right, and the big things seem to be missed. Like, the main event angles haven't been a hit with me, and a lot of the match quality, knowing what those guys can do and seeing them elsewhere. Like, watching Phoenix and King Cuerno the other day, it's like, okay, that's a solid match, but I've seen Phoenix just absolutely kill it once in Lucha Underground with grave consequences. In my opinion, their only great match. And then, killed in PWG, killed in A. It feels like agenting these matches is really hindering the performers. Whether it's that or the editing, as you mentioned, something about the match quality feels off to me.
I would agree with you there, because I've seen match after match after match that has really captivated me in CMML, and it just hasn't happened in the Lucha Underground for me. I've seen the one match that really captivated me in Lucha Underground was the Season 1 opening trios match with, ironically enough, 2 people who I'm guessing you're going to get your daggers out for, Superfly and Sexy Star Rex.
Oh, God, they suck.
And Pentagon Jr., who basically carried the match, versus Big Rick, who was one of the great salvage stories of Lucha Underground in Season 1, the Mac, and a guy who's kind of hit or miss, even though his name is Killshot.
One thing that comes to the matches not being as good as we know they could be, the wrestlers don't necessarily have to perform up to that standard because they have the safety net of all the editing. They don't have to make big, giant moves that have to captivate the audience. They have to make a match that fits the story. So, of course, it's going to be toned down a bit. And then even the editing is going to take away a little bit more from that. Just wanted to throw that in real quick. And Superfly is terrible as well. I'm surprised he's not in VOD.
Well, he could have been. He did get his arm broken by Pentagon Jr., and that's what all three members of the DOD have in common. They were jobbers that got their arms broke by Pentagon Jr.
Famous D stands out as the jobber who survived.
Oh man, that would be the most LU thing ever, is Superfly turning out to be behind the DOD even more than Katrina.
Yeah. I mean,
what
at
a
least
mess of...
What a mess of a stable, you mean?
yeah, what a mess of a stable.
He is a Superfly after all. You'd imagine him buzzing around the corpses.
His mission is he just starts gold blooming at the end of a match, and you just like tap because you're sick of hearing it.
See, that would get me behind Superfly. I would be behind him if he he pulled a gold bloom.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea there. So anyway, we have... So we're actually doing the brief rundown of the cast, so let's focus next on the person that they tried to push the hardest in Lucha Underground Season 1, but failed so spectacularly to get any form of momentum because there are ratings and viewer statistics that showcase that pushing Sexy Star was not exactly the best idea that they could have done.
Well, that's...
I liked her.
Yeah, she was okay, but especially when compared to Evilise, she didn't have any character. She's like, oh boy, I'm a girl. And that was it.
Candice LeRae, she is not. You can't... Her intergender just didn't match. It just didn't really get me invested the way someone like a LeRae does, or an AK-47, or an Evilise. I just wasn't sold on her, and that Superfly feud was just an absolute mess.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good story at all. I didn't understand why I was supposed to care. We're only a handful of matches in for each character at that point. Like, so what?
Well, and then you make the decision to put her over your hottest rising star in Pentagon Jr., the guy that everyone was getting behind, that had so much heat. It just really set things back for them, I think.
It made sense because it made PJ, his story, hesitate for a second, so he had to catch your breath before the rest of it all unfolded, because the next person who became involved in the story was Ian Hodgkinson, who eventually came back to Vampiro. So it was kind of important to have Pentagon and his story hesitate for that one match, because then the next match, PJ just destroyed her.
See, I don't think you needed that hesitation. I think if you had done that destruction right there, it would have been even hotter than it had been, because it really was building up all this momentum, and everything in pro wrestling is about momentum. The more you can build up, the better.
Exactly. There was
again up until that point, all PJ had really done was beaten jobbers. If you run down the list, he didn't really beat anyone who was a winner. Sexy Star was the first person who was actually somewhat successful in Lucha Underground. They were more or less equals at that point. So after that match, when Sexy Star won, kind of made sense, but it also helped Pentagon Jr. double down on what it is he's trying to do, and that's why he ratcheted it up and became who he was all of a sudden. Him jumping over Sexy Star like that was really important to his story.
Well, his main goal was basically sacrificing people's arms. That's a very simple story, but I think that the speed bump actually hurt PJ as far as, he's your breakout star. He's the one luchador on that roster that, besides Mil Murtiez, who I really enjoyed watching in the ring, and figure out how to interact with a non-lucha libre audience from Mexico, and less playing to the crowd and being able to act as a heel, and the transformation from this character who started out early in the season as a guy who really was very hit or miss, and then he started snapping jobbers' arms, and something clicked.
Yeah, like one of the first things Pentagon Jr. had said was, he had no respect anywhere, but he was happy to be at LU because Dario Cueto respected him, which was a really weird starting point considering where he ended up. Yeah, he's doing all this stuff for his maestro. It's weird how radically he evolved over just the first half of the season. He certainly popped off the screen in a way I've never seen before. I've never seen an arm-breaking skeleton with a higher servant who like motivates everything he does, and then just that fire he had in his promos all of a sudden was just phenomenal.
He's one of the most underrated promo guys I've ever seen in a ring.
I don't need Spanish to relate to the passion.
Definitely sells you, even if you're just, in my case, not speaking Spanish, reading the subtitles. He just sells you on that with the passion and the fire, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And if he learns English, I think, or if he busts it out, if he knows some already, I think you're talking about a major crossover star, more than he already is. International indie tours. If you could get him into some good English classes, man, the sky's the limit.
If you want to learn English, just watch MTV.
Or learn Rosetta Stone, or thousands of other language programs that are out there.
Or do what Kevin Owens did and learn English from watching JR.
That's my favorite. One of my favorite wrestlers in the kid story is Kevin Owens learning English from watching JR.
Weird he doesn't say "by God" all the time.
I mean, he does have kind of...
I do remember it being mentioned that he had to explain to other people what slobberknocker meant because he wasn't aware that it wasn't a common English term.
Yeah, that's really funny there.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried though with Johnny Mundo having a prime match. I'm worried that we're gonna see Johnny Mundo as such a featured player. It just doesn't fit for me.
Johnny Mundo doesn't fit as a featured player. You're saying?
Yeah, I don't think so. Especially in the LU environment, it never worked for me having Johnny Mundo as such a prime focus. I mean, when you watch at least the first half and maybe in the first 2/3, if I'm remembering this right, of season 1, I don't think there was anyone that got more screen time than Mundo.
It made sense for season 1 because it was a Mexican promotion working in America, and Mundo was a pretty high name in the American wrestling scene that we hadn't seen in a while. So, of course, a couple people would stick around for him, especially when you look at the other American wrestlers who were part of Lucha Underground. He was the biggest name that was there. So it makes sense in that regard for season 1. Not so much now. I think he's going to be knocked down a few pegs, which will be good for a lot of people.
The problem I have with this constant use of guys who are ex-WWE guys is that the reason that I would want to watch a show about Mexican wrestlers is to watch Mexican wrestlers, not guys I've seen in WWE in the past. I mean, we can also talk about the debut of a certain Darewolf. He's basically in the same position as Mundo is in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, but I think with Darewolf I'm less concerned because it doesn't seem like they're going to really make him such a focus that Mundo was. I can understand using Mundo to try and draw in viewers, but I think having him as such a prime player costs. And I'm not sure how much of a draw Mundo actually was for LU. And I'd have to look into the numbers on that. Which
speaking from personal experience, my grandmother watches Lucha Underground, and Johnny
That's
Mundo.
Cool.
Johnny Mundo throughout season 1 was the only guy that she'd actually seen before. So during season 1, she kind of connected with him when he was the babyface, and when he turned heel, she had already gotten on to liking some of the other guys, and then when he was the bad guy, started going back to her usual cursing out the bad guys. And oh my God, my grandmother is the sweetest woman in the world, but the moment pro wrestling's on and the heels start doing heelish things, oh, the words that come out of her mouth. Oh, you fat pig! Oh, you son of a bitch! Oh, you're horrible! I learned half of my swearing from my sweet old grandmother. And the other half of my swearing I learned from my other grandmother, who's always a foul mouth.
That's funny. It's funny because, ironically enough, that I'm the one person here, I think, that hardly ever swears. So that's a little bit unusual for a wrestling fan in that context.
I'm like Diamond Dallas Page sometimes. I'll use 4 F words to describe a newborn puppy.
Okay, so let's focus on the current Lucha Underground champion, since we are talked about the Disciples of Death and how horrible they are. Let's talk about Mil Muertes. Let's start.
Muertes.
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 Muertes. Stick a W in there. Muertes.
Or just say a man of 1,000 deaths. Like, we don't have to go like bad Spanish or anything.
Well, currently he's like at 999 deaths at this point because he's already died once. So let's see here. Zen, you want to start out?
Well, it depends on if we're counting down or counting up, because then he could be on 1,001 deaths. And then Chris Jericho comes in and he's at 1,004 deaths.
Every time Jericho puts him in a hold, he adds another death.
How many of those deaths were by armbar?
At least one.
At least one, yeah.
Okay, Mil Muertes is the perfect ominous figure to have starting off Season 2 as the champion, especially considering Cueto's left the temple, Catrina's running the show. It's supposed to have that death vibe, and he's the perfect person to be there. He's also showed throughout Season 1 he's one really badass dude, so whoever takes the title from him is going to have to be a certain kind of special for us to actually get behind it, because even though Mil is a heel, I don't really think heel face applies in Lucha Underground anymore. The storytelling is just so fantastic. You just follow the story, and that's kind of what I'm doing with Mil. I don't really like him as a wrestler at all, but I love the story.
I really like Mil Muertes as a wrestler because he's just so capable of imposing fear on everybody else in that ring. Not to mention that he hits like a Mack truck, not counting the Mack.
Yeah, I mean, the name is really good for him, and he does have the figure to match the name, which is hugely important.
It also helps that he's one of those guys who's actually a natural-born talent, so that I'm watching Lucha Underground, I actually get to see luchadors from Mexico compete on American soil in this mysterious underground temple where you don't want to enter the basement. Or in this case, approach the throne room, in this case.
Oh, since we're on Mil real quick, Greenfield on Twitter the other week said he thinks Catrina is going to go too deep into the temple and find something she can't control, and that's what's going to be the invitation to bring Dario back into the storyline, which I thought was interesting because Catrina doesn't know what environment she's in now. She just thinks it's this place to have wrestling happen. Yep. But it seems like Cueto's family has been there for a long time, so of course there's plenty of secrets that no one else knows about.
Yep, and while he's been very much grounded in reality, there's always been the little touch of mysticism with all the Aztec stuff going on. So with the gods, the medallions, the ring logo.
Yeah, all of that kind of weird stuff. Not to mention the mariachi band, but they've strangely gone missing in Season 2.
Mil Muertes killed them and made the throne out of their boat. Because actually that's where the throne is. His throne is where the bands used to play.
Well, here's hoping with Mill at top that we'll finally get a main event storyline worthy of what they do with some of the other stories that they tell. I feel like that was a big miss for season 1 was the main event storyline just didn't work. I mean, I get what they were going for with Conan and Puma, but when you can't really have Puma react all that well to what Conan's doing, you can't really sell the storyline. And with Mill and Katrina, I think it's a better dynamic going forward, and hopefully it will carry this season 2 out for a while.
I agree with that.
Well, the thing with Prince Puma is that he's supposed to be kind of this generic protagonist insert. He's literally the nameless, faceless, silent protagonist. He's the Chrono from Chrono Trigger, the Gordon Freeman, if you will. He doesn't talk, he just acts.
And maybe it just doesn't work in pro wrestling, I think, because it's not something where you're looking through their perspective. I just think that doesn't come across well in a pro wrestling environment.
I don't know. There's like half a dozen guys I can name right now that I'd like so much more if they just shut the fuck up and started wrestling.
Ryback.
Well, we don't want to see the wrestling part. We want to see the actual talking part, because that's the one good thing that Ryback is good at. Big Mike could qualify for the not talking part. So anyways, then, so you have a point here?
Oh, I totally forgot what it was.
Well, let's see here. Prince Puma is another guy that we were going to talk about, and I would agree with Rex in that, he's not a guy that I would consider was very interesting, because he was playing the role of Link in that silence protagonist role, and I could not connect with him at all. Link is silent for a reason, because he's the player that you control. There's no control button on Prince Puma. He's this guy who just stands there, holds belt, and lets Conan, for the most part, do the talking. I mean, they had to bring in Hernandez, who's, well, kind of horrible.
Yeah.
Fuck Hernandez.
Fuck Hernandez.
It had to be said, sorry.
No problem. It had to be said because Hernandez really messed up a lot of stuff that Lucha Underground had planned, and not to mention, caused TNA to trash half of their taping because he was on shows.
Yep, Hernandez is that horrible. With in one day, he managed to ruin some stuff for 2 promotions.
That's a record.
The plan was the best thing TNA had going at the time, and he totally ruined that all on his own. That was phenomenal.
Well, the benefit is possibly we might be getting a few new debuts, some ex-TNA guys in Season 2. Anyway, of new debuts, Rey Mysterio is apparently at the Temple. So how do we feel about that?
What was the question?
How do we feel about Rey Mysterio being in the Temple? I see we have a Caesar symbol from Zen, so I believe the no is there. Vaughn?
I'm not going to be really able to say anything until he actually does something in the ring, because, my God, he sounds like he's 5 years old when he speaks. I'm sorry. You're a teeny tiny little man with a teeny tiny little voice. And, I mean, I like where they're going. I like where they're going with the Dragon Azteca thing. But
Rey Mysterio is a mentor. It'll be fine.
Yep.
But his best days are so far behind him. He should not be in the ring.
Yeah.
I think there'll be so much tension in his matches because we'll be seeing if his knees will hold up.
It's like a Kevin Nash scenario, but with knees instead of quads. We're just waiting for Rey Mysterio's knees to explode and take out the first 3 rows.
There's a couple of fans who deserve to not be there, so I'm fine with that.
Oh my God! I'm just flashing back to that South Park episode where Kyle changes his race and his knees just explode.
Did he have testicles in his knees or something?
Yes, something like that.
Well, it's going to either be that, either his knees are going to explode, or lefty or righty are going to be demanding new contracts, because the rumors out of the stables of the wrestling sheets is that Rey Mysterio has not been getting paid by AAA at this point.
Maybe the knees didn't hold up then.
Yep.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know. And anyway, the last two.
To tie Rey Mysterio and Prince Puma back together, one of the things I was hoping for coming out of season 1 was the White Knight figure, the guy who's pure and selfless and willing to defend anybody at any time for any reason, as long as it's just. There's hints of that with Prince Puma. My concern is that role is going to be filled by Rey Mysterio.
Or El Dragon Azteca.
Live up to that.
I don't know. I think Puma is. Go ahead, Rex.
Huh?
Go ahead, Rex.
I've got nothing. Continue.
Okay. I think either that role is going to be filled by Mysterio, El Dragon Azteca, and we also have to consider Aerostar and Drago. Those two don't have anything really going for them yet in the story.
They might find a third person to create a new trios team with, though, because those two are severe oddballs, and I'm sure there's another one they can bring in to fit.
Well, they've got a dragon, they've got a guy who's a rocket ship, so I don't know. Maybe they need a plant man or something.
That you know what? Who would fit that role perfectly is Flamita. Who? They're AAA wrestler that did a lot of work in Dragon Gate that they're bringing in.
Cool. Can we talk about Cobra Moon?
Sure.
She looked awesome as hell. That little snake thing she did at the end was gnarly, like that little martial arts thing. I'm super pumped about this character debuting in a way I'm actually surprised by.
I'm looking forward to Dario's brother debuting finally, to see what he's capable of. I know the performer behind the mask, I've seen him in matches, but I think Lucha Underground audience is going to be very surprised to just see how athletic this guy is.
People have found out who the guy is already?
Well, yeah, it's been known for a while.
Yes, Rancho King, our source in the California area, knows who he is.
Yeah, don't ruin it. We've been really good about avoiding spoilers on this.
Oh yes, we are going to be avoiding spoilers. Yeah, definitely.
Email me who it is after, because I haven't heard.
Yeah, okay. That's not after the show, but I was actually super excited to hear the whisper that Matanza debuted in the ring, because that was one thing that seemed like had to happen coming out of season 1.
He's actually been in the ring now. Okay,
I don't know if that's actually true, but that's like one of the things that made me like, oh my god, is he actually going to do it?
If you want to find out who he is, you just got to go to the LU wiki and look up the personnel.
You will
Lucha Underground personnel.
Any other characters are you looking forward to for season 2?
Marty's sister, of course, Moth Cheesema.
Yes. Marty the Moth, really interesting character.
Even though he doesn't know how a moth flies.
At all. Eddie
doing the and then others are like flippity, 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 flippity.
So, what character do you think needs the most work for season 2? I mean, we've already listed a large amount of candidates, so...
Sexy Star.
He hasn't even shown up yet. Tejano was friggin' garbage last season. He was, what was it? The shittier or worse version of Stan Hansen or something?
Oh, God, yes.
Stan Hansen's non-union Mexican equivalent.
Yeah, something terrible. Like, he was the most bland character out of everyone who was there. So if he shows up again, they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten about him entirely.
Blue Demon was garbage, and
Blue Demon was garbage also.
Oh, there's so many good candidates. Sexy Star needs a lot of work. I think Prince Puma. I think he got.
I don't know. Just wrap Sexy Star in a silken cocoon and have her come out as an evil butterfly moth person.
I can live with that. That would be.
From what I know, she mostly works heel in Mexico, so the whole being a bland old baby face might be new to her, and turning her heel might just make things better with that. So,
you can also have Marty, his sister, and Sexy Star as a trios team too.
Yep. And Marty is in that Heidenreich Snitsky camp, just being so campy and over the top. I can't help but like the character.
Yeah, there was a moment when I thought his craziness just didn't fit his character at all. Because he started off looking like this dude, bro, who just, was happy to be there and just wanted to get inside, man. That he was just happy to get in the ring. Then in his first match against Puma, like, you saw the dark side just under the surface.
Yep.
And now he's just full-blown nutbag. But Manilow has Pizzazz put up his top 10 for Lucha Underground. He was talking about how people from La Jolla actually look like that. So maybe what we're actually seeing from Marty is him really being who he is, rather than this person trying to sneak his way into the temple.
I mean, he gets points for the sneakiness, and Dario or Katrina would approve for that.
Right, and it's weird how there was the Moth Aztec coin, which he was seeking, and it just so happened to be Sexy Star. It could have been anyone else, and he probably still would have went through this whole thing with that person who got that coin if he couldn't beat them.
Yeah, because he did have a good game plan. He was one of the few characters I felt that had a good storyline set up in Season 1, but just things, didn't pan out. I mean, the kidnapping Sexy Star, that was a good payoff to that angle of Marty slowly going insane. But at the same time, you think that he'll have more of an importance in Season 2, or is he just going to be a lucha jobber to the stars?
I think he steps up a little bit from the jobber point, because this is going to be a really big story. Sexy Star's background is being someone who's been physically abused, and here she is being put through this severely traumatic situation, and we're going to have to see that play out. So it's going to be really interesting, and there's no way you could really tell that story and not do justice to it like we know Lucha Underground can. So it's going to be pretty big.
So,
I don't know. I'm just not convinced that it will be as big as we would hope or want it to be, because they are throwing up a lot of balls to juggle this season, even more so than they have in Season 1, that I don't think that the story will get its proper due. I mean, it just seems like what's going to be sacrificed, and I think that's one of the early storylines that really is going to be.
And the answer to that is,
shortchanged.
of course, more arms.
Well, I think this will be one of the. I think this will be one of the stories that plays itself out first, as all the other stories drop hints as to where they're headed. There's a reason Marty's going to unleash her really soon. It is so that this is a story in the first half of the season or so. Everything else will just take its time to play out through the second half.
the problem with that is that you have one story hinging your entire promotion for a couple weeks while you're setting up all of these other little chess pieces, and if that story falls flat for the audience, they're going to go elsewhere and look for their Lucha Libre experience, because Lucha Underground is a television show with wrestling in it. It's basically a telenova.
Right, and I think that's why the abuse storyline will have more importance initially than it would through the second half of the season when it gets back to more of the Mil Muertes and whatnot. I just think it's going to be important early on than it will be for the rest of the season.
I mean, what are they going to do about the Gift of the Gods title, too? Because now you have King Cuerno as the champion. Cuerno as the champion. And what do you do with Phoenix?
I'm going to sit this one out because I know what happens. So you guys have at it. I'm going to sit here and enjoy where the prognostication thinks this is going.
That's a dick move, Rex. Okay, I'm hoping that the more interesting part of the Phoenix Cuerno thing is Cuerno has to defend the title every single week. That seemed to be a stipulation from Cueto when he introduced the title. So I hope that...
Not every single week, just he would have to defend it whenever he wrestled. It seems.
Couldn't people challenge...
You don't. Yes, people could challenge, but it's not like the Money in the Bank where you win it and you get it carried around and lose every match for 6 months and then cash it in. It's the gift of the gods. You have to wrestle and defend it in your matches, it seems.
I'm sorry, I thought it was a weekly thing that had to be defended if you cash it in.
No, not a weekly thing.
No, it's just when you go out there and you wrestle, you defend it, and you please the gods somehow. That's how it works in Lucha Underground.
And it's basically Money in the Bank and the Dragon Ball's head belt baby. You get all 7 together, you put them in the title, you've got a title shot. And you can cash that in, and then you'll have the match the next week. And then the 7 medallions get broken up, and you have to gather them together again.
Or it'd be cool if someone could steal a medallion from the belt so that you can't cash it in.
That's a possibility, but that person who will probably be descended upon by every single luchador or lucharina who's looking for that opportunity.
I'm just saying it's a cool thought.
It is a cool thought. It's a good idea. But that brings to the question of Phoenix, because he was a guy that was good in Season 1. He had a fantastic casket match with Mr. 1000 Deaths, but he's kind of, I don't know, what do you call it, lifeless?
Yeah, which is weird considering he's Phoenix. He lost to Death. He lost to the Ultimate Hunter, or the God of the Hunters. So what can he do except take a really dark route and reemerge on the other end as life again? So I'm just assuming Phoenix is going to have a rough fucking year.
Possibly. That definitely sounds like he's going to possibly turn to the dark side at some point. Maybe possibly feud with Spaceman and Dragon Man in this whole deal. There's also they introduced him late in Season 1. It was, what was his name? Bengalia? The cat guy.
Bengala.
Yeah.
Well, he's a jungle dude. I don't see Phoenix really feuding with him, but I can totally see Phoenix feuding with Pentagon Jr. He's a really dark character, so it seems natural those two would come back together again.
And then we also have the mystery of Cage. What do you do with this guy? I mean, he's obviously feuding with Mundo, but now
again.
Still again, right. He feuded with him in Season 1. These all blend together.
Cage is actually in one of my favorite matches from Season 1. I want to say it was his debut match in a Fatal 4-Way, and Helica was in it. But I don't know what you do with this guy unless he's in a feud to the death. Like, I don't want him running for the title or anything. I don't see him in that capacity whatsoever. He's interesting as a wrestler, but not in this world for me.
I mean, he's cut back on the, usual GMSI stuff that he's famous for, which is positive. But otherwise, he's basically just a guy that luchadors leap on to do, their spots.
Yeah, he's your big, white, muscular dude who's there for power moves and safe catches.
I would, if I had been LU, I would probably give him a nice little run with Gift of the Gods. Have him start Steiner screw driving people like he's busted out recently, and just be someone that whoever you feel is your next LU champion has to overcome.
I mean, he did
sort of being that underboss character that we discussed earlier.
Basically a gatekeeper for the title scene.
Yes, exactly.
If you put Cage in Steiner mode, I'm all for that.
I agree with that.
Perfect dude.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, go see him hit a Steiner screwdriver on Aerostar and PWG. There should be clips of it somewhere. It is phenomenal.
Nice.
He did rip the title belt in half, so technically that would work for him.
Oh, that shitty title! Thank God, it's the greatest thing Cage has ever done in his career.
My guess is that it looked shitty because they knew they were going to rip it in half.
Either way, it's the greatest thing Cage has ever done in his career was rip up a title.
A Pinata would have been better as a first title than that actual first title belt because it just looks so bad. I mean, I don't normally complain about title belts, but that one was horrible looking. So, anyway, let's see here. Who do you think will be the breakout star of Season 2?
I want to say whoever it is, we haven't seen them yet. We're only 2 episodes in.
I think Pentagon Jr. is just going to get bigger. It's still going to be him.
I would agree with the Pentagon Jr. assessment, and kind of also with Krieger in that I don't think it's someone we've seen yet. I think the potential for, I'm going to butcher this, Matanza is...
No, that's actually correct.
Okay, is going to be huge. I think knowing who's behind it and what skill set he brings to the table, I think could be a very, very great boost that LU needs.
I have a quick question. In some of the vignettes, we've seen this looks like a United States military person in hand-to-hand mixed martial arts combat.
My guess is they're going to do that background for Killshot.
That's what my guess was too, but I was wondering if anyone thought that would be a separate character.
I don't know. It looks like a separate character to me because he doesn't look like Killshot.
Well, he's got all the tactical gear on and everything, which kind of makes me...
the tack gear like that, just the vest weighs about 35 pounds, so...
And he's going to have the vest and then the gear on top of it, and then whatever else he's carrying on his waist. So it could still be the same character, but there's a very real possibility it's another individual. In the circumstance it's another individual, I'm looking forward to that dude because there's no hint to who he is unless it's Killshot.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, there's so many characters that were underutilized or overused in Season 1 of Lucha Underground. I think the thing that Lucha Underground needs to do is they need to balance their characters better and make it so it's interesting to watch this show besides the absolutely gorgeous and wonderfully done backstage segments, which are the best part of every Lucha Underground show. So, you know, it's the reason I watch Lucha Underground is to watch the Dario segments, to watch him control these puppets like strings.
The biggest mistake I made during Season 1 was fast-forwarding through those just to watch the matches. I actually didn't get what LU was until about week 13 or 14 when I started watching the vignettes. And then I felt like an idiot for having fast-forwarded through so much. Those are so critical to what's happening in the world, you can't miss them.
Yeah, I mean, like Drago turning into a dragon, or Aerostar blasting off into space, and Puma talking with Conan and being conflicted. Because that was one of the few bits of character development that Puma got all season was through those vignettes of him talking to his coach or him having conflicts with Hernandez. And that was the only, and his alliance with Mundo until that turned sour.
Which it didn't have to. There was no reason for Puma and Mundo to be opposing each other whatsoever.
I'm really hoping though with Conan seemingly gone, at least for the time being, that it really gives Puma a chance to show off that charisma he has. Because Ricochet is a charismatic motherfucker, and I want to see him show it off. You know,
he doesn't have to talk for you to connect to him at all, which is phenomenal considering he plays the two roles.
Yeah, I mean, what are they so afraid of in giving him a microphone? Give him a chance to establish himself on the microphone to see that this person can talk on a mic.
I'm not even sure he needs to bust out a mic, but I think there is a little problem with that, in that he is from Paducah, Kentucky, and you're selling him as from Boyle Heights, and he sure as hell sounds like he's from Paducah, Kentucky. You can't.
There's a reason to keep him quiet.
There is one reason, to keep him quiet, is you can't really sell him as being a Boyle Heights native.
Well, I guess one good part of Puma's character development is he's a very introspective character because he doesn't talk. Given where he's actually from and where he's supposedly from, it is hilarious. But the guy has a lot of information he received in season 1 from Conan, his mentor, which he now has to see if it's accurate on his own in season 2. So it still kind of makes sense he wouldn't talk yet because he's still sorting out the world he's in now that he's on his own.
Yeah, I can dig that. I like that. I like that take on it a lot.
So there is that. He's just waiting to see who he can talk to in a way he's comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, come to think of it, one of the things I might be looking forward to the most in Season 2 is just to see if, after one too many off comments, that Vampiro snaps once again and proceeds to devour Matt Stryker.
That would be hilarious. Matt deserves to die sometimes.
Yes. Replace him with Buzzing Noise. That was the best commentator on that AAA pay-per-view. I mean, he's got Reverend Jane's seal of approval.
I didn't watch the AAA.
Oh, God, that pay-per-view.
But I did read that comment.
They can't get the announcer to work, but they can sure as hell find the guy that's pumping on the bike horn like it's his heart. I have to pump this bike horn. My God, if I stop all day, honk, 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 all night.
That pay-per-view was so bad I had to watch it because I needed it for award season. I was like, oh, I've got to watch this just to understand how truly bad it is. And it makes everything else seem so much better. It really reinvigorated me as a fan. Like, oh, okay, it could be worse out there. It could be Triple Mania.
I mean, that's how I got my start with my wrestling fandom, was actually watching the bad and then watching the good. So that's a good way to look at things. Okay, so we're running out of a little bit of our time here, so let's get some final thoughts from our esteemed panel. Let's start off with Vaughn.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's once a week isn't enough. I really enjoy Lucha Underground. I look forward to every episode every week because there's going to be at least something interesting happening. They're going to progress the storylines. They're going to introduce characters and actually do things with them. And it's even though it's not quite as good as it could possibly be, it's still better than Monday Night Raw.
I agree with you there. Rex?
I would like to see them do some building to significant events. I felt Ultimate Lucha last year was a letdown, and I think something they can learn from NXT is how to build to those big events. And really, that's what I'm looking forward to most in Season 2 is what improvements and lessons have been learned from Season 1. Because there's a lot of the little stuff they got right. I think there's a lot of the big stuff that really missed, but they've shown enough to me that I want to give them a lot of slack and see where they go with it.
I think Rex needs to defend the position that Ultima Lucha was a letdown.
Oh, okay. Name a good match from Ultimate Lucha, and don't throw out. Don't. Oh no. That was an average brawl. I think Pentagon Jr. and Vampiro was such a paint-by-numbers death match. If you watch stuff like Jimmy Havoc or the Young Bucks and World's Cutest Tag Team, you can see what potential lies. People say, excuse away Ultimate Lucha, especially Pentagon Jr. and Vampiro, by saying, oh, it was a garbage match. But garbage matches can be done extremely well. And that was just one that wasn't done well. I think they let the foot off the gas at the end of the season, and it really was a letdown to what they had previously accomplished.
You didn't even enjoy Drago versus Hernandez. Come on, man.
Everyone had like that because it was Hernandez legitimately getting the fuck whipped out of him by a dozen fans with belts.
I feel like I liked that for all the wrong reasons.
That makes it right for all the right reasons, though.
It doesn't matter. Still liked it.
And there was still Puma versus Mill, which was, I thought, phenomenal.
I wasn't sold on it. I thought it was the best match of the card, but I don't think that was saying much for Ultimate Lucha.
Boo. Whatever, I'll let it slide.
Rex, bring in the hot takes here on Cageside Speaks.
Episode 1 for me was almost perfect, which makes episode 2 really kind of a letdown. Um, they kind of toned down the intensity and everything for this last episode. So I'm super excited to see how everything goes, but if they keep having these up and downs between every episode, it's going to be uncomfortable to watch. Just because you're not used to the emotions being thrown all over the place as you watch this show like that.
I agree with you there. So I guess because I'm the last person here, I'll do the last thoughts. I think that Lucha Underground has much more competition this time around than they did in Season 1. In Season 1, they were a little-known offshoot promotion that many people didn't think was going to succeed very well.
And they had zero expectations.
Yeah. But instead, they managed to succeed when most other startups have bombed, like Wrestling Society X from MTV all those years back. And now, in Season 2, they've got a lot of targets on their backs. I mean, in case they haven't read the news, Triple H is trying to conquer the wrestling world. And they got to be ready for that. Not to mention, they've also got competition down in Mexico from CMLL, who also has started expanding online and is now broadcasting Lucha Libre live on their YouTube channel. So the waters are a little bit more filled with ships now than there was in the past. If they get their production values, which are fantastic, but if they get like the quirks that I said about with the sound issues and try to balance their stories better, I think that Lucha Underground Season 2 will be better than Season 1, provided that something catastrophic doesn't happen to them. And considering that every wrestling promotion this last year or so has had something catastrophic happen to them, I do worry about Lucha Underground, and especially since their parent company has had so much financial troubles recently.
Well, if the rumor is true that they're going to do Season 3 already, I'm not too worried. These guys are so good at storytelling, they can adapt to a lot. Even the failed I Am Mexico storyline from Season 1 came to a resolution that kind of made sense. They didn't just bail on it and forget it happened. They still deal with failure in a creative way.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Anyway, we'll have to see how this goes because there's only been 2 episodes broadcast so far. We've got the rest of Season 2 left to go. Thank you all so much for talking about this wonderful, interesting show that so many wrestling fans are so into. Over the last hour or so, we've managed to talk about a lot of great ideas that the 3 of you have come up with. And we hope that you join us again for the next edition of Cageside Speaks. I believe the next show is going to be Fastlane, so we'll see what WWE does to shoot themselves in the foot again. I'm 14 Fitzpatrick, and I will see you whenever the next time I'm on one of these shows. And have a good day and good night, ladies and gentlemen. See ya.